This figure is interesting for a couple of reasons. So let's first look at the anatomy. Here on the x-axis you have the years from 1880 to 2020. And then on the y-axis you have global carbon emissions in million metric tons of carbon. And you see that that scale goes from 0 to 9,000. At the same time, this looks at global population growth, and that is here on another y-axis, where we have a scale from 1.5 billion to 7 billion. And in order to make it easier for the viewer to see the difference, it is color-coded with the emissions in blue and the global population in red. In the year 1900, the scale was made such that you have the global carbon dioxide emissions and the global population converge, and then you see what happens to those two. So that's how they made those scales. And we know that in 1900 we had 1.6 billion people. And you can see when you follow that red line as we are going up that the global population rises, and actually in 2011, we believe that was on October 31st, we hit the 7 billion mark. At the same time, you can see that carbon emissions also rose from that less than 1,000 million metric tons to up to 9,000 billion tons. Last week we learned that the y-axis is the independent axis, and that it's often the one that depicts values that we think has an effect on something else. So here, of course, that's ridiculous. It's not just the passing of time that causes global population to grow. This is a different question that we have here, where we wonder whether maybe global population growth causes the rise in carbon dioxide emissions. But first, to even come up with this question, this was a useful way to depict the trend in both carbon dioxide emissions and global population, and you see both go up. Interesting is also this little insert, because this graph depicts the relationship of global population on the one hand and carbon emissions on the other hand. And that they put the global population here on the x-axis is because the assumption is that global population affects carbon emissions and not that carbon emissions affect global population. Makes sense, doesn't it?